Welcome to this panel integrated in the IDC Security Roadshow 2021. We will be discussing data privacy and management, specifically blockchain and cryptocurrency. My name is Pedro Borralho. I am associated partner at IDC Consulting and also Zertive partner. And I have with me three experts, starting by Filipe Castro. Filipe is founder of Utrust and also Chief Compliance Officer at Old. Fred Antunes, he is CEO at RealFevr and Board President at the Portuguese Blockchain Association. And Pedro Febrero, he is Head of Blockchain at RealFevr. I will start with a few slides. These slides are based on the IDC Futurescape. I'm sure you all know about these Futurescapes and how they present information. They select basically 10 top predictions in this special case related with blockchain, and the numbering has no special meaning. It's really instrumental. Only the predictions are disposed over time on the horizontal axis, and vertically they represent complexity or cost to address this specific prediction. We will not discuss all these predictions. I just selected two of them. I will start with prediction 4. Prediction 4 says that by 2025, 20% of consumer loans will be disbursed in a central bank digital currency. In fact, it's almost inevitable that digital banks will be digitalized. So this will have a lot of economy consequences, which are being studied, etc. But this will also introduce new means of payment on this digital economy. So IDC guidance is engage proactively with commercial banks and all the fintech ecosystem in order to follow all the tendencies. Also guarantee interoperability with the central bank digital currency and also the commercial banks. And prediction 8. Prediction 8 shows that tokenization is a way to digitalize data and value exchange between organizations. And by 2025, according to this IDC prediction, the worldwide tokenized asset market will reach $500 billion, which is quite impressive, but the potential is much greater. So it's very important for all the economic agents to start preparing for this token economy. A lot of challenges are present under this prediction, and the enterprises, the companies, must decide what part of the value chain they will serve. So this ends this short presentation and opens the space for a set of questions. I will start with Filipe. Filipe, I looked at Utrust, and your mission just struck me, and I will quote. Utrust mission is bring the power of digital currencies to the world's businesses and people. This is not all the statement of the mission. I just shortened it a bit. But what are the most relevant use cases of digital currencies and digital payments for the economy and especially for the enterprises?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think in terms of mission, I think you touched upon really good points. We really want to bring the power of cryptocurrencies, of digital assets, of this innovation to companies. And we believe that the best way to do that is allow them to engage, to accept this new type of digital asset in their businesses, and to do so in a way that actually integrates really well with their existing payment channels, with their existing systems. We kind of bridge that gap of difficulty of integration, and we want to make really easy for businesses to accept any type of digital assets, either present or future. This actually relates to the first topic of CBDC, central bank digital currencies, and how that will be part of this digital landscape and blockchain technology. Although there are some certain elements of how exactly that will play out, but we want to help businesses accept this new form of payment, accept this new form of digital assets, and capture this type of innovation early on, because we believe that this is the way for them to grow in terms of customers, revenue, more than ever in this post-COVID era, to really rev up their businesses and make sure they're prepared for the new digital age.
Okay.
And maybe my colleagues want to add something to this topic, or do you guys believe that this is a path that businesses should be looking upon, or is there something else that they should be doing in terms of digital payments or in terms of central bank digital currencies, or how those two will play along?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It is great to be here today. I think before we start over, with a specific opinion about the global landscape, I think it's very important to make some fundamental definitions about what kind of payments and digital assets are we talking about. And the definition between what is a crypto payment or what is, in general, a digital asset payment, I think it's really important for everybody who wants to study this and develop business in this technology. And I think there is a huge difference between what is a CBDC, central bank digital currency, and what is by default a cryptocurrency. And I think one of the key points that makes this definition between these two sides is decentralization. So when we speak about blockchain technology, we always must think about something that by design and its architecture is fully decentralized, or at least try to be fully decentralized. And when we approach a CBDC model, we are not talking exactly about this principal concept and this philosophical concept about decentralization. So I would put this difference up front, because I think the future will need to define what is a path to choose and which one will be the most important one, or at least how to find a way to both parties coexist, because I really believe that coexistence will be the biggest challenge for the next 5 to 10 years, in my personal opinion. So one thing is when the end user is going to pay something with Euro Digital or Yuan Digital, which is something very important for us, to bring to the table, which is Yuan Digital, because it's already working use case, as you all know, I guess. And the second one, is a traditional crypto payment, which in fact, I don't believe it will be Bitcoin. I think there will come out some other projects better for micropayments, but in the end, we have platforms that belongs to the community, and some other platforms that will belong and will be managed centralized by, in the case of Europe, by the Central Bank of Europe. So I would say that this definition is absolutely mandatory when we approach this topic, because we are talking about two completely different proposals, and both of them will need to coexist in our near future, let's say.
Yeah, Thank you also for inviting me. The only thing that I would like to add here, I agree with you both. I think digital payments will definitely make use of blockchain, both in terms of cryptocurrencies in general and also CBDCs. I also agree with Fred, so there's a huge gap between the cryptocurrency and the CBDC. But for nation states, I guess it makes sense to keep the control of the monetary policies, fiscal policies, etc. So I guess that type of technology, so CBDCs will basically be deployed. I would focus the concern into basically the traditional banks, commercial banks, I would say, because they'll probably need to shift their services. They will need to offer different types of services because with the CBDC, basically customers have direct access to the central bank, so there's no need for a bank intermediating transactions, meaning that I believe they'll have to reinvent themselves. So tokenization is probably one of the ways that they'll try to follow. Because if we can tokenize assets or other types of payments, for example, facilitating payments, I think that's probably those are the groups of activities where banks will probably need to focus after CBDCs are implemented. But I agree with Fred. I think there will be coexistence between digital currencies such as CBDCs and the cryptocurrencies, decentralized cryptocurrencies, I guess, because they serve different people and different purposes.
And eventually the time to market. Exactly. Because time to market is everything right now,
Yeah.
And time to market, when we think about Europe taking 3, 4, 5 years to implement Euro Digital compared to what the crypto economy and the crypto market is already doing, and compared to what the Chinese government is already doing with Yuan Digital, I think for me it's crystal clear that European Commission needs to move forward way faster than what they are doing right now.
Yeah, I fully agree. So first of all, I think both models that you mentioned, both the open-ended or permissionless model, will coexist with the more permissioned one. So I think there's no one overwhelming the other.
Yep.
And there's actually a middle ground, which is companies actually in the private sector launching their own digital currencies, which is a kind of in-between. Examples such as Diem, previously called Libra, the initiative by Facebook, and others that will certainly follow after that. So I think the future is a bit of a mix of all three models plugged in, which actually causes a lot of confusion for businesses. And that's also where we want to simplify all of this and make sure that no matter what the future is and no matter the rate of adoption, we want to be there to serve and educate and to help businesses and other institutions tackle all this complexity under one single system. I also think that the institutions in Europe, in the US, should accelerate their own initiatives.
They must.
The ECB has draft papers on what models could conceivably be implemented for a digital euro. The Federal Reserve is a bit, still lagging.
They are going to use USDC.
Yeah, they plan. There's a different mix of approaches, but it's unclear at this stage. So I would say that in terms of perception, they're actually behind the ECB. But all of those initiatives, they pale in comparison with the Chinese yuan, because they're really on the forefront of this.
Absolutely.
With a working pilot.
Yeah.
And we should have a working pilot at this stage, not only a draft paper. So this should absolutely be a priority going forward, because it's not only important for governments, for the financial sector, but for all of our economies, for all of our businesses. The money is the lifeblood of our own markets, our own economies, and especially during times of crisis with uncertain monetary policy, this is going to be key. And not even mentioning the transformation of intermediary banks. How would that play along? Will they have to transform to meet this new challenge and new demand? Absolutely. And I think we could discuss how that would take place, but that will be a very long and separate discussion.
I think what you're saying is very interesting, and I would like to bring another topic to the table, which makes a lot of sense, which is, by definition, retail banking is not central banking. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we think about the traditional bank ecosystem, we think that everybody is doing exactly the same or playing the same roles. And the truth is, retail banker and private banking, they have to evolve and they have to digitalize all their platforms, not only to be competitive in this digital payment system, but also because in the whole fintech world, a lot of new proposals are coming in with billions in valuation, thousands of new customers, and especially the young ones who do not need to go to a physical office, or they don't need to see someone to trust because they trust just in a mobile app. So for the next 10 years, this generation that is at the moment 15, 16, 18 years old, so they are about to join, the global financial system, these teenagers, they will not need at all a physical bank to contact with and trust, because they trust in a simple mobile application. And this role, I think the retail banks, they will be, completely able to convert themselves in something a bit more digital, which they are already doing, slowly, but they are doing it, at least they are trying it. And for the future, I don't see any issue for retail bankers, to have any kind of digital assets in custody or for brokering. I think the biggest issue is really for the central banks, because the central banks, they need, their role will need to be completely reinvented. And why? Because the challenge that blockchain technology brings to the table is the governance model. So in terms of governance, blockchain technology does it by itself, So we don't need exactly specific human beings managing and controlling the whole ecosystem, because blockchain technology was invented for human beings to delegate that power to the technology. So in terms of retail banking, I don't think there will be that much issues in a commercial approach. I think for the central banks, the challenge is how do we reinvent ourselves and have a strong and solid role when we are being governed, let's say, by a technology that works, almost in an autopilot approach. And I think this is really the biggest challenge. And in terms of solutions, one of them is deep chain analysis brings to the table the full control of a crypto asset with a completely clear picture in one single dashboard. And one of the things that the central banks will need as soon as possible, I would say, is to have a full vision and a full picture, clear picture about what is this new brand digital assets world, and find a way to create regulation, not to control the operation, but to define the rules, how this operation will go. So basically, once you deploy the blockchain technology, it runs almost full automated, but before the technology gets deployed, we need to set up the rules. And I think that will be one of the major challenges for the central banks, is to find the proper people and the expertise about having the knowledge how to manage blockchain technology, how to manage the deployment of smart contracts themselves, and find a way to put themselves in the position where they will define, in terms of monetary policy, how this new brand world will operate. It's just my opinion. But by default, I don't see any issue for commercial banks. The only issue that I see is really reinvent the central banks, because they will need to be reinvented for sure.
What type of advice could we leave for the retail banking in order that they can accelerate embracing the
retail banks in the last 20 years, they are selling almost everything. They are like merchants.
It's no longer loans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's actually primarily loans. So in terms of, if you think of traditional intermediary banks, the type of customer they're serving, a bit laggards in terms of adopting digital technologies and being closer to the customer, especially younger customers, and that actually propelled a lot of new, or not so new right now, fintechs to actually trying to displace them, which took away a lot of margin. And this was even before blockchain technology and digital currencies. And actually, parallel to this, a new revolution, new disruption is already taking place. While they're still thinking of, how to deal with the previous one, because those cycles are a bit long when you deal with such a traditional industry. It's really challenging because now they have two disruptions to deal with. I would argue that the best way is actually try to embrace the future, because in terms of resources and capabilities, banks, at their core, they're financial, they're not technology. And that is a big, big problem, because right now, this is technology at its fundamentals. This is no longer just finance. You don't have a tech department that is like, okay, we're gonna have like a tech department to do something related to, our customer, or how do we interact with this new type of digital service.
It's no longer only an IT department.
Yeah, the IT department is no longer an extension of your bank, but rather the IT is your bank. It is the primary thing that it's the core of your organization. So that itself, it's rather transformative. And I think that's the primary obstacle for banks.
Great.
It's the thinking that this is the new paradigm, and they need to adapt to this. Technology needs to be at the core of their innovation. And unfortunately, many of them don't have the resources and capabilities to do this. So what I would think will happen is that they will have to either partner with institutions that already have those capabilities that can help them driving this new age of innovation, or either they will acquire a player, or they will completely transform themselves from the ground up to become part of this digital age, to themselves custody digital assets, like banks in the US already doing, new digital banks. So there's different paths towards transforming to meet those new challenges. It's up to the institutions, which one do they believe is the best? And of course, there's a fourth one as well. We're not going to adapt, we're not going to transform ourselves. We want to retain a niche of the old market, for example, because there are niches that are not currently served by new technologies. If you think people with a certain age that still have a more traditional view, they still have, or they want to have this proximity to a bank branch or something like this, that is a viable strategy. Of course, unfortunately, that's a declining user base, so that might not be a viable strategy on the long run, but it is a strategy nevertheless. So ultimately, it's up to the decision makers of the financial institutions how to adapt and meet those new challenges.
Before I give the word to Pedro, let me just use this metaphor, because I think it gives a clear picture about this challenge. If we study history, these kinds of challenges, they belong to the history of mankind. We always had these ones. And one of the best metaphors that we can use is back to the 70s and to the 80s. There were two big companies connected to photography, which was Kodak and Leica. And Kodak, they always said, no, we are too big to be a small part of a smartphone, so we don't want to move there. But Leica, they just reinvented their business, and today they are one of the best micro cameras that we can have in a smartphone. So they reinvented their business, they accepted technology, they moved forward, and today they have a completely solid business model. So, but Kodak, in the opposite, they just disappeared. And Kodak, back in the past, they were huge in terms of photography company. So the challenge today for the financial ecosystem is really who wants to be the new Kodak or who wants to be the new Leica. And in terms of decision powers, this is just what the CEOs or the administration council, they have to be on a table and they have to make a decision. Listen, we cannot put this apart, and we must make a decision. We go to the Kodak side or we go to the Leica side. And there is just option A and B. There is not that much things to think about. It's just A or B, and you make a decision. And as soon as you do it, more competitive advantages you will have, because we are not talking about an early adoption stage. We are talking about an already growing stage, because the early adoption was 5 to 6 years ago, in my opinion, maybe 4 years ago. But today, that time, you know, the train is already running. So we are not at the station thinking about if we want to go or if we do not want to go. The decision is more, we stay here and we see the others going, or we go with them. And that is really the decision that I think is on the table right now.
Sure. I mean, I agree. I don't think that I can add much at this point. Just that, you know, again, as I was saying, commercial banks, intermediaries, they'll need to reinvent themselves. And I agree that both technologies will basically be super disruptive, and most, I think, financial companies will transform into technology companies, as Filipe was saying. So they'll definitely need to adapt. They'll definitely need to use either an open-ended technology that's public available, that's decentralized, or they can choose, you know, something a little bit more closed, like CBDCs. But they will have to fork into some of these options, I think, because staying the course they are on, staying on the same path they are currently. I agree with Filipe. They'll basically be serving a decreasing user base, I would say.
But there's a silver lining here. So this is not only a risk, there's also opportunity.
Sure.
True,
So
exactly.
this is the prime moment to actually be part of this ecosystem and be part of this new digital services economy. With this intrinsic change, a lot of cascade changes also are happening and will continue to happen. By changing this fundamental rails of the financial system, and which will be kickstarted by central bank digital currencies, already ongoing, but will be further kickstarted by central bank digital currencies. A lot of things will also change. Payment channels will change. Look at what Visa and other players are already doing, although in a very limited fashion, but what they're already doing at the foundational blocks. Of course, the role of intermediary banks, as we've been discussing, the role between the consumer, the direct interaction between consumer and consumer habits, and how will they have this direct link with the company and the company holding or custodying their money. They might even be self-custodian if they want. They can have their own custody of their own money. Think of this as the digital equivalent of stashing money in your house, but in a digital fashion. And those are new trends, and those are growing and continuing trends that will only grow as time goes along. And I think companies should be aware of them, should start preparing for those, taking action, because once those are evident, it's a bit too late. You're part of the laggards on the adoption curve, and you definitely don't want to be that. You want to be, the Teslas of the world. You want to be the pioneers. You want to be like Elon Musk, that, okay, we want to grab this early on, although many will laugh at me. Many will laugh at his decisions, and have been in the past. But he's been proven right again and again and again. And you could say the same for other organizations, for other decisions that, in hindsight, everyone agrees that, yeah, that was obviously the right decision. But at the time, it was very controversial, and many people said, no, that's obviously not going to work. But it does work, and I think that's part of this new age, and we should all be looking into this.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that awareness is already created. All the retail banks are looking at this, especially the fintechs mostly. But do we already have the skills, the people with the skills for this transformation?
Your question is brilliant and really, really intelligent. Before we move to the expertise, we need to understand where the expertise comes from. In the end, the knowledge itself. Where the knowledge comes from. The knowledge always comes from someone who is humble to chase new knowledge and bring innovation and disruptive technologies to the world. So if I sit myself in this chair and I think that I already know everything, I will not innovate at all. Sure. So to do this approach, I need to be somehow humble. And I really think, and I don't want to be rude, but at the same time I want to say really what I think. We need to have those decision makers to be a bit more humble, to move a bit down and understand then from the newcomers and from the people that is already in this business and in this technology. They have a lot of things to learn. And after learning, then they can have a strong and solid critical thinking about how to bring and generate more value to the ecosystem itself, and in consequence, to improve their own businesses. But without this value chain that starts, in my opinion, in humbleness, we need exactly to start from that point. And this is not something that you are just, okay, I want to understand what is Bitcoin, or I want to understand how it works blockchain technology, or this project, or this project, or this project. In fact, what I need to understand is me, myself, and I have to wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I will try to think that I don't know nothing about my profession, and I want to know everything from scratch. And when you do this approach, when you use this type of mindset, is in fact what we are doing in the last 10 years. Filipe quoted Elon Musk, but we can go back to Steve Jobs, we can go back to Bill Gates, we can go back to Jeff Bezos, whatever, because what they did in fact was, okay, I know nothing today and I want to learn everything from the scratch, multiple times in a perpetual cycle. And this is something, by default and by design, is not really present in the traditional financial world. And I'm not saying this with criticism, I'm saying this, just to aware the minds, trying to open them somehow, because I think it's the only way to get the expertise, because everybody can understand this technology, everybody can access to this knowledge, everybody, can operate with this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of knowledge, as you're saying, and there's also a lot of openness. So nowadays, with open technologies, anyone, it's universally open. Anyone can learn more about this.
Easy.
It's very easy. It's actually free in most cases.
Yeah, exactly.
It only costs time, actually. So it's about the intrinsic drive to know more about a certain piece of technology, on how that specifically works. So in terms of skill set and how that can be gained, I think it's pretty much a given what we have right now. I see no shortage of talent, even working in this area. Even in Portugal, we have amazing talent here, and I wish we had even more companies, more talented individuals, and I think we will continue to grow. In terms of the knowledge base here, I think we have like an amazing and growing ecosystem in Europe.
But I think, Filipe, there is one very funny thing. Funny somehow, because in terms of human capital management, people who works in crypto economy, the type of liquidity that exists there is completely different from the traditional world. So most of the brightest minds, they are already bonded to their own projects, to their own companies, and they are not really chasing, 2,000 or 5,000 salary per month, because they already have their businesses, they already have their richness, let's say, which in fact gives a completely different picture about what the future of human capital management will be. Because the fact is, the growing of Bitcoin and some other crypto assets brought to the table new types of liquidity and new types of value stored that people, that has probably the most expertise, does not need to be completely, subservient.
Yes, so the threshold of joining those, it's definitely lower. That means anyone can join. And anyone can also gain knowledge to actually be part if they want to build those technologies. But I would argue there's a profound distinction between knowledge and insight. Yeah, so the knowledge part, anyone can learn. But only by practicing and exercising that knowledge in a specific company, in a specific area, in a specific field, one can gain insight on the caveats, on the pitfalls, and the opportunities that follow on that specific area. And I think that is the component that is a bit missing, where I feel it's missing in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, I disagree with a bit what you guys are saying, because I think the skilled people are already here. If I want to have a loan today in a cryptocurrency that's decentralized, I can do it in a decentralized platform. I don't really need to go through an intermediary. What I mean is that, for example, DeFi, decentralized finance, has exploded like since the last year, and from flash loans, so basically under collateralized loans, we already have that on cryptocurrencies, right? It's not something new, it's already been developed. What I mean is that highly skilled labor, it's already here, right? We need more, definitely, but it's not something that we're desperate or the market is desperate for, because people are already here. The people that know how to build, they're already here, they're doing stuff. What I think that more people will join as the price rises, right? I think the price is the reason for adoption, and for any cryptocurrency, and that matters. So what I think that will happen in terms of skilled labor joining the cryptocurrency space, even CBDC space, the blockchain space, let's put it that way, is basically market valuation. So the more the market, the higher the price goes of the market cap goes, sorry, the more people that will join, basically. But if we look into what we have available right now, definitely there's highly skilled people already working in the space, because I mean it's quite hard, and Filipe and Fred know that by experience, because it's quite hard to build these types of applications with smart contracts, with decentralized storage. It's quite hard. It's not the same thing.
Yep.
In terms of security, in terms of development, in terms of what you need to look into, right? So, in my opinion, there's loads of skilled labor here. I hope that more people join, but I don't think that it's a problem right now for the blockchain space. I think enough people are here, and the proof is that the products are already built. It's not something that we're trying to build next year or whatever. It's already here, and it's usable, and anybody can join. Right, so I think that's good.
But I guess that the finance applications are just bubbling. And
sure.
What about the other applications? Because I'm sure that blockchain will serve much more than just cryptocurrencies and digital money, etc.
We are bringing the art to the table.
That's a very good question.
I'm sure that RealFevr, for instance.
Sure. That's a great question. I think that what we need to consider is that a blockchain, and this is obviously my opinion, but a cryptocurrency or a blockchain protocol, they for them to be fully, decentralized, they do need to have some sort of cryptocurrency working in their backend, right? So that there's an incentive scheme running for users, right? But I completely agree with what you're saying, is that different sectors will enjoy this technology in many different ways. RealFevr is building a product that's completely different, and the goals are completely different from, for example, from Utrust and the whole, right? But the use cases that are emerging right now, they're still being developed, and I completely agree with that point. Some of them are already here and are already fully developed. They need better interfaces. They need many different things, and with that I also agree. But my point is, most of the things that we need to develop, they are already being developed, right? They might not be fully developed, but the ideas and what people are building on, it's already here. For decentralized governance, for supply chain, for healthcare, there's so many things that are being built right now. It's not concept, they're being built right now by real developers. Are they
available in the cloud, for instance, as platforms as a service?
Sure. For example, I was giving an example of decentralized autonomous organizations, right? So DAOs, right? The ability for people to join together and make hard business decisions. It's already here. There are many projects that have this type of governance mechanic, right? Where a community, through snapshot and application, they can basically vote with the tokens that they have, and they can make a decision on how the company should move forward. I'm not saying this is the better way of doing it. Sometimes it is. Most times it isn't. It's a way, right? But my point is, these technologies are already here. People can use them. Of course, if you're a bit technical, you can dig a bit deeper, you can develop upon them. But even for the end user, for the people that just want to deposit money and do something with it, right? Those applications are already here. You can, for example, stake in a hold and earn staking, for example, staking rewards, or I mean, there's so many options, so many things that are already here.
Of course, they have different levels of maturity.
Exactly. Yeah, sure.
Not all applications of blockchain technology are on the same level of adoption.
Sure.
So some of them are more into the prime time, more on the spotlight. They're ready, like they have beautiful UIs that are usable. They're like mobile apps. Others are still, okay, the technology is there, but it's a bit crude. It's like using the command line in the old days of MS-DOS before Windows. Maybe it's not completely ironed out for mass adoption, but the fundamentals are there, and the applications are vast. Supply chain is a good one. Even NFTs, the most recent craze or highlight right now. They're a really good application of tokenizing, uniques, art, and different kinds of physical things into the blockchain. Think of owning a painting or a digital representation of that painting. The difference is, instead of buying a painting and if you want to sell it in the future, it's not that liquid as an asset.
Sure.
The advantage of NFTs is that there can be very liquid, so you can actually sell your digital painting or resell it at a future date if you want to do so, and you have a real-time valuation for your assets.
You can bundle them. Sorry to interrupt, Filipe. You can bundle them together and sell them like in a type of bundle.
Things that were not possible with a traditional physical asset and now are possible with NFTs, and this is just one of many applications. So the sky's the limit here.
I think one of the biggest game changers that blockchain brought to the table was the difference between primary markets and secondary markets. So by default, usually people used to buy something in a primary approach, and then even there is a lot of law saying that secondary markets cannot work directly and free. So what blockchain technology brought to the table was primary market and secondary market. They live exactly in the same place, real time, and they are fully integrated. And regarding to the NFTs, day after day that we are working with that, I really believe that the future, we will not speak at all about blockchain. Blockchain is like TCP/IP, back to 30 years ago. And if we speak, to a live audience about if they know what is TCP/IP, or if they know what is HTTP, or whatever, or an SMTP mail server, they have no idea about that.
Everyone uses phones nowadays, but no one knows like the protocol that communicates with the antennas and the towers.
When we speak about the technology names, that is not really the mass adoption thing. The thing is the product. And regarding to the NFTs, I really think that for the next 10 years, everything will be tokenized with NFTs. And I can give you a very clear example, especially in terms of, how we see a nation, how we see a government. There are a lot of use cases in terms of public administration that we need to move forward to NFT world. I give examples: land,
real estate.
Real estate, healthcare, national citizenship, cars, aircraft, passport. Everything will be completely tokenized. And when we think about tokenization, I think it's a complicated word. When we move to NFT, we are simplifying, and when we see the product, it's even better. So digital art was one of the major approaches. For me, the first NFTs that I bought was in 2007. I bought a piece of land in Moon, lunar token, as you know. Well, it was not really important by its value, but it was important because it was a proof of use case, a proof of concept. So after CryptoKitties were great, and today, basically we are tokenized everything. And in RealFevr, we are working with that. I don't want to push the conversation to there because it's not the subject of this conference, but I would say in the future, everything will be an NFT, even ourselves. Because when we think an avatar, a real avatar, in fact, we are an NFT. And our citizenship can be directly converted to an NFT, because it is really a singular individual, which is exactly why an NFT protocol, in the case of Ethereum, ERC-721, was designed. So what worries me about every day, and as a CEO of a company that works fully digital, and I really think that Filipe is going to agree with me, is the cybersecurity issues. Because when we think about business models, and 500 billion in revenue, 1 trillion in revenue, people get crazy because there is a lot of money in there, right? But they forget the antivirus, which is one of the biggest problems in our society today. Not only the cybersecurity issue is not only for the blockchain and this role, it's for everything,
Yeah.
because everything is related with cybersecurity, and most of the people, they just ignore that. They don't give a clear attention and the real importance that cybersecurity has today in this world. Today, 2021. It's not for the future. It's today. So that is really one of the biggest concerns. And I would say, in terms of human management capital, that is probably one of the things that we are still lacking in terms of evolution. There is not that many people with a specific expertise in cybersecurity and blockchain and decentralized platforms.
I will add to that, since we're quite short on time, but my remarks on security is that with blockchain, since this is a more equal ecosystem with more democratization, the security benchmark is equally high for every single participant.
True.
That means by yourself taking the assets into your ledger, into your possession, you have to take adequate security measures to protect your assets.
You must have the knowledge.
Yes, you must know that you have the knowledge. And unfortunately, this applies to every single person. As we go more and more mainstream, this applies equally to the same mainstream audience, which unfortunately is not very knowledgeable about those specific challenges. If you lose your password to your application, you can call a number, call support, and they'll identify you, and you will get your account back. If you lose your private key, well, you just lost your assets. There's no one to call. There's nothing that can be done. Unfortunately, the responsibility actually comes with the ownership part, with that ability to have custody of own assets. And that's why I see that we're going to have a bit of a hybrid approach as we go more mainstream. More users, they actually don't want to have that responsibility.
Exactly.
They can have if they want to, but most of them they don't want that.
Sure.
They will need to rely on a custodial, trusted institution, someone they really trust with their keys, with their assets, someone knowledgeable and has the abilities to secure those assets, to actually have that role, because they will not.
I'm sure there's a huge opportunity there for making business.
Agree.
There must be. Well, guys, our time has gone by. Thank you very much. It was a huge privilege to moderate this panel with 3 real experts. It was also one of the most animated panels I've ever been, and so thank you very much again, and thank you also for you to be present.